All right, everyone. Hi, thank you for watching this video. We are the Bay Area Society for Neuroscience Youth Chapter, which basically brings neuroscience to the Bay Area public. My name is Netra Srinivasan, and I'm a student executive of the Bay Area SfN Youth. So without further ado, let's get started. So today's video is going to be an intro to the brain. But before we get into an intro to the brain, let's talk about what is neuroscience, because our organization's name is Society for Neuroscience. So neuroscience is the study of the brain, nervous system, and its effects on behavior and thinking. So today, the aspect of neuroscience that we're going to be focusing on is the brain. And why is neuroscience so important? So do you ever wonder how you can do math or remember what you ate for breakfast today? Or are we really the greatest species out there because we have an opposable thumb or because we have a really complex brain? So neuroscience will help figure this out. There is so much about the brain we do not know about, so we are always learning. So let's take a look at this brain. What do you notice? Well, I notice that this brain has some sort of weird wrinkles. Let's take a look. What are all those wrinkles? So these wrinkles on the brain, they can be seen as with a sulcus or gyrus. So in the wrinkle, the sulcus is the depression or crack, and the gyrus is the ridge or the hills and the mountain of the wrinkles in the brain. So all of those wrinkles, they help to increase the surface area of the brain so that the brain can do its many complex tasks. So we also notice that the brain is divided into two halves called hemispheres, and they are joined together by a bundle of neurons or brain cells. And this bundle is called the corpus callosum, and it allows the two halves of the brain to communicate with each other. Because as you will see, the two hemispheres, they have different functions. Now, remember, these functions are not limited, and both hemispheres of the brain can do the same sort of functions, but that's just the way that the brain is compartmentalized and the way that it's easier for us to think about the two hemispheres of the brain. So, in the right hemisphere of the brain, it controls the left side of your body. And this is mainly the part of the brain that's artsy, creative, imaginative, visual, and for emotional stuff. And the left hemisphere controls the right side of your body. And it's for the logical, math, science, the methodical stuff, for like rationality, that sort of thing. So let's move on to the cerebral cortex. What is the cerebral cortex? It's the outermost layer of the brain. It's a very, very thin layer. And it's wrinkled for a lot of surface area for different sort of functions for the brain, as you will see. So basically all of these, the outermost part of the brain, which forms all these wrinkles, is the cerebral cortex. And the cerebral cortex is split into different functions, which we know as the lobes of the brain. So what are the lobes of the brain? So there are specific parts of the brain that have a special job. And this allows for our brains to be extremely complex. So the frontal lobe is for planning and complex thinking, and that's right over here in blue. The occipital lobe, which is in the back of the brain, which is pinkish reddish, is for seeing. The parietal lobe, which is yellow, is for knowing where your body is in space. And the temporal lobe, which is green, is for hearing, understanding faces, and for speech. So this is where two types of association areas called Broca's area and Wernicke's area are. And Broca's area is for speech production, whereas Wernicke's area is for understanding a word's meaning. And so those two are important for language comprehension, which is the job of the temporal lobe. All right, so there are other major parts of the brain. So if we take a little step back from what we were seeing earlier, we see this brain over here. So the big part of the brain right over here, that's called the cerebrum. And inside the cerebrum, there are a lot of different structures that do a whole bunch of different things. And the cerebrum is for all sort of different functions to help your body do what it does. Now, the cerebellum, which is the red part over here, it's right behind the cerebrum. And that is for movement, coordination, and procedural memory. So for example, knowing how to tie your shoes, that memory is stored in the cerebellum. Now, let's move on to the brainstem, which branches right from the cerebrum. And that's for connecting the nerves in the body to the brain. And so there's the brainstem, and then as it extends down, that's what forms your spinal cord, in which nerves branch from it to control all of the different muscles in your body. So in the brainstem, there is the pons, which is the upper part, and that's for movement, coordination, sleep, and arousal. And the lower part, right over here, which is the medulla oblongata, that's for life-sustaining functions such as heartbeat, breathing, swallowing, etc. Now, what's inside the brain? Let's take a look over here. So we have this image right over here on the top right-hand corner. This part of the brain, this shows all of the different structures in the brain for the limbic system. And the limbic system is a set of structures in the brain that is important for emotions and emotional learning and memory. So the parts of the limbic system are the thalamus, the amygdala, hippocampus, hypothalamus, and cingulate gyrus. So let's take a look over here. The thalamus, which is right over here, is the relay station for incoming information. So all of the information coming from your senses, they come from the places where you sense, like for example, from your fingers or something like that. So the nerves carry that, and then they bring it up the spinal cord, and then it reaches the thalamus. And then the thalamus then directs that to a certain part of the brain. Now the amygdala is for fear response and for fear memory. And it's almond shaped, so it's a very small structure in the brain. Now the hippocampus, which is pink right over here, loops around the brain, that is where memories are encoded. And then the hypothalamus, which over here is the hypothalamic nuclei, that is important for regulating temperature, thirst, hunger, and your endocrine glands like the pituitary gland. And the cingulate gyrus, which is in blue over here, is for processing emotions and behavior regulation and for regulating autonomic motor functions. Now let's move on to this part of the brain here called the basal ganglia. This is for planning and initiating movement, and that's what's shown in the structure in the bottom right. So all of these colored structures make up the basal ganglia. And I hope that you enjoyed our video. Thank you for watching. That was just a very short overview of the brain. There's a whole lot of other structures there. But I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you will continue watching the next videos that are in our channel. Thank you.